Test one. Test 1, 2, 2, 2.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
And welcome. I have to keep reminding myself that we're in the middle of September and not in the middle of July, as far as the temperature is concerned. But far be it from me to complain about that, because I know come March, I'll be missing this. We are going to welcome Shabbat tonight through song, through the spoken word. We're going to continue with singing for Kabbalat Shabbat, the act of welcoming the Sabbath to us. And if you turn to page 134 in the Siddur, you will find Psalm 95, Zamrula Denai Bechinor, sing to God with either a harp or a violin, depending on how you translate it. Please join us.
Zamru l'Adonai bechinor, bechinor v'kol zimra, b'chatzotrot v'kol shofar. Hariyu lifnei hamelech Adonai, Zamru l'Adonai bechinor, bechinor v'kol zimra, Chatzotrot v'kol shofar, hariyu lifnei hamelech Adonai, Iram hayam umlao, tevel veyoshveva, neharot imcha uchaf, yachad harim Yiram hayam umlo צדק ועמים במישרים ירם הים ומלואו תבל ויושביבה נהרות ימך וכף יחד הרים ירננו יחד הרים ירננו.
I think that was Psalm 98, not Psalm 95. But I was thinking as we were singing, and Richard, I don't think I've ever told you this, a dear friend and colleague of our cantor Benji Schiller, who was in school with me, but who then became one of the principal leaders of the cantorial school through the Reform movement, used this psalm as the text for a song she wrote for our wedding, actually, like a long, long time ago. But the business about the rivers clap their hands and the mountains sing joyously together, really beautiful imagery, both in English and in Hebrew, and warms my heart when I hear it. We're going to turn to 138, though, and we're going to continue with Lecha Dodi, the 16th century poem that welcomes Shabbat, the spirit of Shabbat, as we would welcome a bride to the wedding canopy. It's our custom to sing the first, second, fifth, and ninth, the last stanza. And when we arrive at the last stanza, if you're feeling comfortable, please rise with us and face the door so that we can welcome the spirit of Shabbat and whoever is showing up late, because they tend to go together. You made it before the fifth stanza. You're okay. Not to worry. Please join us.
Lecha dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela lecha dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela shamor וזכור בדיבור אחד השמיענו אל המיוחד אדוני תפארת ולתהילה lecha dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela lecha dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela likrat Shabbat lechu v'necha הברכה מראש מקדם נסוכה סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה lecha dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela lecha dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela התעוררי כי באורך קומי אורי אורי שיר דברי כבוד אדוני עלייך נקרא lecha dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela lecha dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela אוי ושלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובצהלה תוך אמוני ים סגולה בואי חלה lecha
And we continue, remain standing, and continue with the Reader's Kaddish, the Chatzi Kaddish, which is on page 144.
יתגדל ויקדש שמי רבה, ויאמר דברי חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומייכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח, יתפאר ותרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו, לעילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תמירן בעלמה ואמרו, אמן.
Page 146.
Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam
And we continue together at the top of page 149. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows.
Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'ma'ariv Aravim.
Page 150.
Ahavat olam, Bet Yisrael. ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו יומם ולילה ואהבתך אל תסיר Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
Please be seated. And please join us with the V'ahavta at the top of page 154.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך. ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך. וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך. וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
Let's continue together in the middle of 157. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed.
Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nehedar ba'kodesh, nora tehilot osef ele, nora tehilot osef ele, malchutecha בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים, זה עליינו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר כי פרד אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael.
And let's continue with the Hashkivenu in the middle of page 160. Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace, and raise us up, our guardian, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel, and for your name's sake, be our help.
Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. God, our going and coming, to life and to peace evermore. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people, Israel, and over Jerusalem.
Baruch
Baruch
atah
atah
Adonai.
Adonai.
Haporei sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. Page 162.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, ביני ובין בני ישראל, אות היא לעולם, אות היא לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים, כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
On page 164, we've reached the central portion of the service, the Amidah. Please rise.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, ve'Konei Hakol, ve'Zocher Chasdei Avot ve'Imahot, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, נאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש בשמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Please be seated. And please join me at the top of page 173. We'll continue the next few pages on the top of the odd-numbered pages on the left-hand side until we arrive to page 178, where we will sing Shalom Rav, our prayer for peace. But for now, on 173, please join us. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth.
May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Ever-present one, may we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayers.
Wherever we live,
Wherever we seek you, in this land, in Zion restored, in all lands, you are our God, whom alone we serve in reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otcha levadcha b'yirah na'avod. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more, we offer thanks.
Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha, ulecha na'eh lehodot. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. V'tov b'einecha levarech et amecha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. Tasim leolam.
Baruch atah Adonai havarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom. Blessed are you, Adonai, you bless your people, and God willing, all people everywhere with peace. For hopes for a world of peace, we continue our prayers silently.
Ose shalom bimromav, Ose shalom bimromav, Uyase shalom aleinu, Uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru
In the middle of page 371, you'll find a modern setting for the traditional Misha Berach for healing. It is a prayer that asks God to provide Rifu'ah Shlema, a complete healing, both of the body and of the soul. And with that in mind, we think of those people who can use our prayers, the hostages who are still alive, those who have been wounded in the battles in Ukraine and Russia and also in Gaza and Israel. Lucy Adams, Yudit bat Sarah Chaya, Sarah bat Bessie v'ben, Devorah bat Masha Yocha v'Chenoch Melech, Rivka Fegi bat Phyllis, Rachel bat Yehudit, Emily Baer, Marjorie Becker, Sarah Calamaro, Bonnie Chait, Kevin Boland, Yosef Carrasco, Vivian Cohn, Katie Peltz-Davis, Eve Eisman, Pamela Finberg, Roz Flegel, Mike Flegel, Leonore Friedman, Susie Garrison, Marianne Gehrig, David Goldenholtz, Ruth Goldman, Russ Hearn, Robin Holmes, Jennifer Houston, Michelle Jacoby, Pat Kester, Rory Langlois, Jim and Karen McDermott, Kathy Manchero, Don Metzke, Bob Ratke, Nancy Ron, Mosi Ramirez, Larry Rector, Marion Resnick, David and Ann Roger, Bill Ross, Martha Ross, Micah Ross, and Sally Ross, Dan Ruderman, Stella Schneider, Gary Siegel, Herb Selden, Jeannie Silver, Seema Silverman, Michael Stillman, Martin Strauss, Will Thompson, Deidre Tischberg, Ted Tausman, Vito Valente, Kenneth Wexler, and Judy Wise, as well as Leo Weinschel. If there are others of whom you are aware who could use our prayers for healing, I would ask you please to hold them close to you in your heart as together we pray.
Mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say
Some years ago, I came across a book written by one of the then leaders of the Reform movement, a fellow named Al Vorspan. Al was very involved in social action issues. He was present when the Voter Rights Act and Fair Housing Act and Civil Rights Act that were passed in the mid-'60s were done. They were actually drafted on a table at the Reform Movement headquarters in Washington, D.C. at the time. Don't tell anybody. But Al was also a very, very funny guy, just naturally full of witticisms and quick thinking. And he wrote a few books, one of which was called Start Worrying Now, Film at 11. And for those of you, I think we're all of an age that we remember what film at 11 means. Back before people were using video for news, they would provide film. But of course, the point of this from a Jewish standpoint is, Jewishly, it's never too early to start worrying. However, my work as a rabbi and my life as a Jew has taught me that one should be wary of such alarmist statements, even though that was meant humorously. Because from other corners of the Jewish world, they emerge with some frequency. And yet there are occasions when sounding the alarm makes sense, and this week is one of those times. This past week here in Milwaukee, we've been faced by a real hateful escalation of anti-Semitic words, gestures, and attacks on the Milwaukee Jewish community that's reached an alarming and public new low. I don't know how many of you have read the Journal Sentinel over the last few days. You may, in fact, have heard about the troubling, tremendously offensive mural erected on the wall of a building at the corner of Locust and Holton. What you may not know is that the past week also included a variety of attempts to intimidate Jews on the UWM campus and public calls to boycott the Federation, the Jewish Community Relations Council, and Hillel Milwaukee, and labeling all of those groups as extremist groups. There was a letter that came out today from the Federation, which was quite helpful. And if you read it, some of this will be familiar, and if you haven't, hopefully this will make an impression. The letter stated, quote, these acts are part of a seemingly coordinated siege of anti-Semitic attacks at UWM around the Milwaukee community and in social media spaces. This vile wave of attacks began the moment UWM reversed its suspension of 5 student groups who had originally been suspended, for violating campus codes of conduct over the summer regarding threatening and hostile behavior or actions. Those 5 student groups came together as the UWM for Pauli Coalition, and they put a post on in Instagram declaring that Israel-supporting organizations such as Hillel Milwaukee and Federation were not welcome on campus, were labeled extremist organizations, and really most alarming was the final statement in what they posted. Any organization that has not separated themselves from Israel will be treated accordingly as extremist criminals. Stay tuned. That's how it finished. That's a new step in our community. Last Sunday, this so-called coalition posted a series of pieces noting that the 5 groups, I would say student groups, but they're not really run, all of them, by students. There's a lot of outside people who are involved in this effort. They posted some pieces celebrating the fact that the university had reinstated these groups at the beginning of this year. It's not entirely clear to me why. The group itself posted something that said a university investigation of incidents showed that there was no discrimination violations in that July 19th post I just quoted. I'm not sure how it isn't somewhat threatening and discriminatory, but it seems that the university, which has not had such a great track record in dealing with this, has also fumbled the ball again. This past Wednesday, September 11th, during a student fair at UWM, members of that pro-Palestinian coalition physically harassed Hillel students and passed out a flyer designed to make it look like it had been created by Hillel. Some of the wording on that flyer included, and this was directed towards students, Jewish students. "You are not building a community, quote unquote, or quote unquote, finding your people in college if you join Hillel Milwaukee. You are simply acting as a pawn to support the slaughter of fellow students like you." And the second note in the same message, "It is crucial for organizations such as Hillel that indirectly fund the genocide to recruit naive students straight out of high schools. Such students make easy targets to manipulate." There's a lot of projection that goes on in the world of politics and culture. I think this is one of those examples. These efforts are designed also to take advantage of the fact that many students, many non-students, really don't have a comprehensive or even coherent understanding of what the history and current situation is in the Middle East. Hillel and another Jewish student organization decided ultimately to leave the student fair because of the harassment and the fact that the university was not taking any action to quell it. There were posts yesterday, Thursday, by this coalition that mocked the harassment they engaged in with Hillel, students, staff, and Jewish faculty. And this has really been something that has accelerated since October 7th. There's always been pro-Palestinian activity, and some of it quite reasonable. But there's also been a dedicated group who have been waiting for their moment, and this seems to be their moment, taking much advantage of it. And for the UWM administrators who just are not really engaged on this issue of what's happening to the Jewish students, I have just one question. What would happen if students of color were similarly targeted? I have a funny feeling there would be a robust response from the school, but it seems at this point in time anyway to be open season on Jews. The schools, people in authority are not responding in what I would consider to be a responsible way. This past Monday, our Jewish Community Relations Council, led by the remarkable new director, Roberta Clark, planned and hosted a community-wide discussion on civility. Frankly, personally, I was amazed at the group of people that she was able to amass, people representing various ethnic and community groups within Milwaukee who have a bit of a track record of working with the Jewish community. But she was, I think, I don't even know, like a month and a half after starting, was able to get everybody together for a program called Civility in Our Times, which was designed to help focus on civility from a nonpartisan perspective as we head into a heated presidential election. The program was designed to be a unifying opportunity to bring Milwaukee residents together for this conversation about democracy. On Sunday afternoon, the executive director of the Islamic Society of Milwaukee sent a very anti-Jewish and anti-Zionist email to the three non-Jewish panelists and included the following. Quote, "We hope you do not fall for the lobbying efforts of Israel's proxies in the U.S., and that you continue to adopt a moral and ethical stance based on the recognition of the human, political, and civic rights of all people, including Palestinians. Beyond this, someone showed up to the program to hand out flyers and to also canvass and put flyers on all the cars outside that included messaging accusing the Federation and the JCRC of promoting Islamophobic and racist messaging, encouraging police to brutalize protesters, promoting anti-Semitism towards members of the Jewish community who have different viewpoints on the war, and encouraging a boycott of the Federation and JCRC events. Now, protests like this are not unprecedented, but they've never been this focused. They've never been this direct. They've never named names the way this language, which it does. The frequency and level of vituperation, if that's a word, is it a word? You know what it means. The level of just animus contained is somewhat unprecedented. And that was all leading up to yesterday, Thursday, when a large mural was hung on the side of a building at Holton and Locust, a mural depicting a Jewish Star of David intertwined. Actually, it was more, I would describe it as a swastika superimposed on a Jewish star with all sorts of interest. It's actually a beautifully done mural in the sense from an artistic standpoint. There's all sorts of things going on in the background, and in the bottom it says, the irony of becoming what you once hated, unquote. If you're walking or driving past this, I understand it's kind of hard to miss. Now, the mural is problematic for a number of reasons, not the least of which is that it completely obliterates the boundary between anti-Zionist and anti-Semitic language. There are people who will say, look, we have a beef with Israel, and we don't like what's happening, and some don't feel Israel has a right to exist. But in the same breath, they say, some of my best friends are Jews. This is not about Jews. This is about Israel. And yet, on a rhetorical basis, it's a very slippery slope. And I think that hanging up this mural is an example of that. Where do I begin to explain how? Well, Holocaust comparisons are problematic from day one. And when that's your first kind of message that you're equating people with the Nazis, Jews or anybody, it's a pretty hard sell. Such a comparison dehumanizes the victims and the survivors of the Shoah. They are factually incorrect. They fuel Holocaust denial, and they give life to narratives that prevent us from understanding just how complex the past and the present actually are. Second, the use of terms like apartheid and genocide are not just inflammatory, they're just not really appropriately used. The situation in Gaza is very bad. I don't want to whitewash that, so to speak. And in my opinion, Netanyahu has a lot to answer for. And I hope he'll start talking soon. And yet, genocide, by definition, is when you're trying to get rid of an entire group of people. And if that's what Israel is engaged in, they are very bad at it, because the number of Palestinians over the last few decades has expanded manyfold. And talking about apartheid is also not exactly an accurate description. If you know anything about Israeli society, you know that Palestinians living within the state of Israel have full political rights. They occupy many important roles. Some have sat on the Supreme Court of Israel. If you go to Hadassah Hospital and some of the other major hospitals, you'll find departments, even the head of medicine at Hadassah and Ein Kerem was somebody who's Arab. And that's not unusual. Doctors, Jewish, Arab, Muslim, Christian, all seem to have worked out a truce for the medical setting. And it used to be the case, I'm not sure it happens as much now, but you could go into the trauma bay of one of those large hospitals, and in one section would be a terrorist who had been shot while committing a violent act, and right next to that bay would be someone who was one of the victims. And you had Jewish and Arab doctors and nurses working with each other to do this. I've actually seen this up close, and it's kind of amazing. It's not without friction occasionally, but it's really a model for how the rest of the country ought to work as well. Palestinians on the West Bank and Gaza, of course, do not have all of those opportunities. They are still, the West Bank is still in a state of occupation. Gaza technically isn't, because after 2005, there were no Israeli soldiers stationed there. There were no Israelis living there. The Israeli communities within Gaza were evacuated by the army. And if you can imagine watching young conscripts, 18, 19, 20 years old, helping families to leave their homes that they had built, watching the families crying, watching the soldiers crying, it was really a most affecting moment. And it was something that most Israelis felt redounded to their credit, that they were able to do that. But the settler movement was a little different back then than it is today, and it certainly didn't have the political sway that it does today. Part of the reason that Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza don't have as many opportunities is because there's really been a continual state of war going on between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, Islamic Jihad in Gaza as well, Hezbollah up north in Lebanon, which yesterday shot 30 missiles at Israel. We don't hear the news here unless you're looking for it, but the barrage of missiles, there have been thousands upon thousands of missiles shot at Israel over the past few months. It hasn't stopped. And there are still hundreds of thousands of Israelis who are not living in their homes because they've been evacuated away from the borders. So this is still a very fraught moment for Israelis. It's something important, and I think you probably know this, about the aforementioned groups. Their issue is not politics. They are religious-based groups. They're fundamentalistic in their approach. They are extremist in their aims. They are actually not interested in a Palestinian state. They're certainly not interested in making peace with Israel. What they're interested in is establishing what in medieval times was called a caliphate, a form of religious government stretching across North Africa into the Middle East, which would be governed by Sharia law, and something on the model of what you see in Iran today, complete with religious police, beating women whose hijabs don't fit exactly right on their heads. It's a very problematic thing, and there's lots. I would say the majority of Palestinians really don't want that, but they're caught between a rock and a hard place. The groups I mentioned are the minority of Palestinians, and yet they're the ones with the guns. So if you're Palestinian, you really, it's very hard not to be subject to their demands and interests. I mentioned before the attempt to cloak the kind of anti-Semitic talk that's been going on here in town under the guise of, we don't hate Jews, we just hate Zionists. In a sense, and this was mentioned in the Federation letter, it's putting those people, in the position of determining which Jews will be tolerated and which Jews will not, which is really, and in practice, only Jews who attack the state of Israel are acceptable in their eyes. And there are some Jews who feel that way. I could go on, but it is Shabbat. And suffice to say, in closing, it's heartening to hear from interfaith colleagues, virtually all of whom were silent after October 7th. I still don't entirely understand why. They were all very present when there was the shooting at the synagogue in Pittsburgh years ago. But October 7th, it was crickets. That's a completely other different conversation. However, this mural has pushed things to a new place. And there are people from the interfaith community who are beginning to understand that maybe this is going in a direction that they're not going to be able to support fully. We are fortunate as a community, very fortunate, to have an active federation and Jewish Community Relations Council that's gone above and beyond to help keep us safe. Their work with local, state, and federal law enforcement authorities is actually very, very effective. And our own Ari Friedman from our congregation is the person who has been leading efforts at establishing security for all of the Jewish community in Milwaukee. And he was on this, he was expert in this so early that he's become a very effective consultant for Jewish communities all around the country. It's not so much right now, but I remember 3 or 4 years ago that he was constantly flying to different places to meet with local Jewish leadership so they could learn how we were trying to handle things here. We're also very lucky that the Milwaukee Hillel is led by a very competent and talented rabbi named Josh Herman. And I can tell you he's very competent and talented because I stood next to him at his bar mitzvah here on this bima many, many years ago. And he is someone who has spent extensive time in Israel. He really, in a very granular way, understands this all. And so that position, that's helpful for him, I believe, in trying to chart a course responding to what's going on campus. Last but not least, the other side has been very successful in proliferating their message. And I think what I'm taking away from the events of the last week is that we can't sit by quietly anymore. Palestinian Americans have been getting this message out for the past 40 years in a very effective way, speaking in local Rotary clubs and school boards and running for elective office. And we as Jews had done that a few generations before, but we're waking up and realizing that there is not a Christian churchgoer in this country who has not heard a Palestinian American talk to their congregation about the situation. And I can say just on my own behalf, on my own position, we knew this was going on, but we didn't really feel a need to mount a similar kind of campaign. And I'm not suggesting we need to do that right now, but I am suggesting that if you're in the position where you're talking to people you know and who will respect your opinion if you offer it, you can share your opinion. Now, your opinion might be, Israel has made its bed, it has to lie in it. I mean, that's not a completely specious conclusion, given the policy decisions that have been made in the past year and a half. On the other hand, just as I think it's very possible to support the state of Israel and the people who live there, and at the same time mount a very focused critique on the political world there and its elected leaders. Those things are in tension, but they're not. It's not irreconcilable as far as I can see. And I think part of what our job can be is to help people see some of that complexity, to understand that, yeah, there's real issues there, and there are reasons why there are real issues there, and both sides have to do some adjusting. But the response ought not to be that one side is sainted and the other side is just evil. And that, unfortunately, given some of the things we've seen here this week, is the message that is currently being sent out. So I find it hard to say Shabbat Shalom after all that, but I wanted to make sure that you were informed and knew what was going on. And my hope is that in a month we'll be able to come together. I guess the holidays are a lot closer than that, huh? In a few weeks, we'll be able to get together and see that there have been some positive attempts to build bridges within the community. Our own congregation has a very terrific relationship with a group called the Turkish American Society of Wisconsin, whom we have been doing programming with for the past 4 years or so. And just this morning, I had a Zoom call meeting with one of their members, who's a professor, head of religion department at Carthage College in Kenosha, or Racine, wherever it is, and father, Silas, who sang in our choir last year, was one of the bass singers. And it turns out that he has many years of doing interfaith education. And so he's going to join Fatih and me this year in teaching a course in the fall, which will be nice. The last couple of years, it's just been Fatih and me, and it's been, how do Jews and Muslims read the book of Genesis? But there was always someone who said, well, how do Christians fit into this? And I'd have to, I don't know. But we now have somebody who does. So keep your eyes out for that. That's going to be kind of a great opportunity. For now, we're going to move to the conclusion of our service, which begins on page 586 with the Aleinu. So please rise and join us in facing east.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
You can find the Mourner's Kaddish on page 598 in the Siddur. We think especially now of 2 Israeli soldiers killed in a helicopter crash this week. Daniel Alush, who was 37, and Tom Ish Shalom, who was 38. We remember the following who have members of our congregation saying Kaddish for them, and this the year following the death: Herb Bratt, Bill Nikud, Dick Kahn, Stan Jolton, Robin Glickstein, Rob Lieb, Bob Lieb, Allie Kravitz, Marcia Fenson, Nancy Osterman, David Hested, Gary Sobel, Chip Alberts, Hank Borkovitz, Jonathan Frank, Stan Arnoff, Dick Kuhn, Yehuda Yanai, Bill Fox, Marcia Reese, Maxine Cohn, Dr. Joseph Bear Marcus, Ron Sinclair, Margot Hirsch, and Jim Stillman. And the following, whose yahrzeit falls this week, Andy Alamino, my brother-in-law who died at 9/11, Kenneth Alschwang, Marlon Becker, Andy Cherniak, Russell Fisher, Paul Gratz, Herbert Heilbrunner, May Horowitz, Billy Lynn Lawler, Jim Mushin, Edward Rosenberg, Molly Jeanette Rosenberg, Ernest Roth, Victor Solinsky, Pauline Schwedelson, Lily Wallace-Seiden, Jeff Siegel, Harold Stemmerman, Daniel Lewis Stix, and Herman Veit. And if there's anyone here who is mourning the recent passing of a friend or loved one, or who is observing a yahrzeit anniversary of a loved one's death whose name I didn't mention, I would ask you please to share the name aloud with us at this time. Let's continue with Kaddish.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach chiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, b'chayichon v'yomechon, u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, b'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal Shemei d'Kurasha B'richu Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'imramav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen.
May the source of peace, who creates peace in the highest heavens, enable us to learn how to make peace here on earth. May God share with those in mourning a measure of consolation and comfort. And together we say, Amen. Please be seated. Now, Coach.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I just want to take a moment and after that moving sermon to say that thank you for being here today. We are a community. We need to support each other. And can you not hear me? Because Al's giving me the... So thank you for being here. We're a community. We have to stay strong. And I don't know, it's a tough time. So, okay, now the announcements. Tonight's Oneg is sponsored by Patty and Doug Levy in memory of Daniel Lewis Stix. Yes? Okay, good. We are grateful for the contributions made this week to our signing community in memory of Kenneth Auschweg, okay, Stanley Jolton, Edward Rosenberg, Andrew Cherniak, Stephen Kay, Mina Grossman, Jim Muchin, and in honor of Judith Ross. Please join us for following upcoming programs. Through the Eyes of Women with Dr. Sherry Bloomberg, Friday, 10 a.m. at Sinai. Okay, that's another one. Shabbat, yeah, what you said. Saturday, September 14th, 10:30 at Sinai. Kalea Cafe. Okay, this is something the Brotherhood is sponsoring. Putting scammers out of business, one educated consumer at a time, with Ben Marins this Sunday, September 15th, 10 a.m. at Sinai, sponsored by Sinai Brotherhood. I'll be bringing the food and coffee there. I hope to see you there. Now, more important than ever, I think, social justice at Sinai, Monday, September 16th at 5:15 p.m. Scholar in Residence Weekend with Rabbi Andre Weiss, PhD, September 20th and 22nd. Fall Holiday Dinner, Friday, September 20th at 7 o'clock. Fall Holiday Dinner, formerly known as Sukkot Barbecue, Friday, September 20th, 2024, 6 p.m. Shabbat Services, 7:15, Fall Harvest Dinner. As always, please refer to Tuesday and Friday's Sinai e-News for the latest Sinai programming, and Shabbat Shalom.
When I was growing up, there was always a moment in the Passover Seder where everybody had the Haggadah out and we were going around reading in English what it said. And then you'd get to a section that had a list of like 7 completely unpronounceable names of rabbis from 2,000 years ago. And I sort of felt like that's what you were presented with today. So you did good considering, so thank you. We're going to, in a moment, light candles. I want to invite Lisa Vondra, who is one of our teachers, of our youngest students. And I've got this, you can tell me if this works or doesn't work. I used to ask people at the beginning of the service, but then they were nervous the whole time. So I figure you can be nervous between here and there. I know you can do it. When we have done candles, kiddush, and motzi, please join us inside for oneg. And please take advantage, or please make the effort to introduce yourself to somebody that you don't know here tonight. I know a bunch of people know each other. I know other people don't know each other. And it's the only way to keep this being a welcoming synagogue is for me to repeat that ad nauseum. So I apologize to those who have heard it for years, but I haven't been convinced yet it's a bad idea. So, please rise, page 120. Yes. It is a little bit, actually. Okay. Yeah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Shabbat shalom. Thank you. And page 123 is where you will find the words for the Friday evening Kiddush. Please join us.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Borei Peri Hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho b'yahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila l'mikrei kodesh, Zecher litziat Mitzrayim, kivanu v'acharta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, ve'shabbat kodshecha, ve'ahava uv'ratzon, hinchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat L'chaim.
L'chaim. And please join us in the motzi. Baruch atah
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'te'avon.
Kind of a hint of vanilla. It's very nice. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat
We'll see you
shalom.
inside. We'll bring this challah. You can taste it. It's good.